everyone. It's Jill here. KNDMS is really excited to share with you some of the things that we learned during the pilot preparation, specifically around safety, PPE purchasing, and signage. I want to take a moment really quick and introduce Stephanie Ammons, who is KNDMS's very amazing ops manager. She's going to be sharing some really granular details and awesome tips throughout the slideshow. And so I'm going to hand it off to her in just a second here. I wanted to name for the team a couple of the approaches that the ops team, along with K&E's ops team, took to preparing our building for return. And so this is really important as a process because it wasn't necessarily a linear process from start to finish for us. So one of the tips I have, especially if you're sharing campuses with any other teams, is that you meet regularly with your counterparts and other stakeholders. KNDMS and K&E's ops teams, so Dela, Whitney Marte, Steph Ammons, and myself met for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 weekly, to make sure that we were all on the same page, definitely using strength areas to execute some of these bigger tasks. And so that was definitely a high leverage move that helped us to be very successful. And you're going to see some evidence of that collaboration as Steph Ammons talks through some of the pieces that we did. Another thing that the ops teams did that I think really helped us to stay focused was to really make sure that we had named and identified our values, what we wanted to see. So when we get to the portions around signage, one of those pieces that we wanted to make sure also existed is that our signage was clear, very safety oriented, but also very welcoming and not overly sterile, so that when our students do return, that our building feels friendly. As we went through the process, we definitely would zoom out to really take a big picture look at all of our big buckets and then zoom back in to get to the details. One of the details that we're going to start off our mini presentation here is going to be about the topo bags that were designed to make sure that teachers were prepared when they returned to the building. But that came out of a larger conversation about actually preparing for arrival and dismissal, which is a big, major system at the school. So we would go zoom out, then get really detailed, and then during our weekly check-ins, zoom back out again, make sure that we were still on track for the overall deadlines and deliverables, and then zoom in to get really detailed about how we executed those things. So I'm going to hand it off to Stephanie to share some of the things that we learned during the pilot presentation.
So our very first action item was to prepare teachers before they got into the building. So we spent a lot of time thinking about what teachers need on hand every single day to have as a backup or to have one while they're in transit. So we collaborated with K&E, who had a nice hookup for some topo bags, and they are crossbody bags, or you can wear them like a fanny pack, so it's comfortable for every staff member, and it has multiple pockets. So inside the topo bag, every staff member at all times has sanitizing wipes, extra masks, hand sanitizer, a thermometer, and some thermometer covers, so they're sanitized for students. Then we also have a screener laminated in each topo bag. So that screener is for when the student comes in, any staff member is ready to ask students if they have had any of the symptoms related to COVID, and allowing them to enter class or to find a ride home. To prep students for learning, we needed to have individualized supplies for every single student. This slide shows you all of the pictures of supplies we ordered. That is for electives and for core classes. You'll see art packs. You'll see individualized supplies such as mouse, headphones, monitors for each student. So every student has what they need, and they will not have to share with another student. Now, if a student does not pass the screener, we have to have a place for them to hold until someone can pick them up, or if they did not walk, how to get them home. So we have an infirmary space, which we converted a conference room into an extra nursing station. For this space, you need cots, sheets. We ordered drum surround backgrounds from Guitar Center to go around each cot to provide social distancing and ultimate safety for staff and students. In that room, you see it's pretty sterile. One thing we wanted to do to go a step further is to put up some warm signage like "Get well soon," and so that way it's not as sad as it looks right now. But this room also has a projector so we can play a movie or something while they wait. And also each cot needs sheets and a bin for underneath the cot, which would have sanitizing products and also like a throw up bag. So one of the plus sides of having a drum surround as well is you can use a dry erase marker to mark which ones are sanitized and which ones need to be clean. So our conference room fits 3 cots. Overflow we set up in the gym with 3 more cots that are spread out for extra overflow just in case students show up with symptoms. If the student passes the health screener and can go to class, you'll see pictures here of our socially distanced classrooms. All the desks are 6 feet apart and there are no more than 20 desks in each classroom for cohorts. And we removed all the extra furniture and put them in the gym for now. So to help students navigate the building, we have ordered and placed down floor stickers. Our floor stickers, as you can see, have our values on them, and that was intentional. So when students, our visual culture is consistent throughout the building. There are arrow and directional stickers as well as just our values, and those are placed every 3 feet because a cohort students can be 3 feet apart. On the walls, there are socially distanced signs and reminders to wear masks and COVID signs every 6 feet. So if cohorts are passing each other, they need to be 6 feet apart. So that's how we did that. You'll also see on this slide our PPE storage closet. This is our backup inventory closet. You will see that there are tons of supplies. We need enough for backup for the entire school, and I suggest unpacking them as they go and assign a teammate, somebody that can do that consistently. Otherwise it piles up and gets really exhausting and you spend a lot of time unboxing. So keep up with it as it comes in. But in our backup closet, we have masks. We have gloves of all different sizes to be considerate of all of our staff members to have comfortable gloves. We have rubbing alcohol for Chromebook cleanup and sanitizing. We have extra sanitizer, and then also things like signage lives in here. I keep a stapler and scissors, so easy access. Mounting tape is helpful to have because we have so much extra signage now. But anything PPE backup is in this closet. PPE for classrooms, there are PPE closets in every single classroom, which has what the teacher would need with students. And then in their triad workspace, which you'll hear about later, they have backup for the classroom. And this backup closet is for only the ops team to bring that inventory to the triad workspaces. So teachers do not go into the PPE closet. That is in their workspace. So they always have adequate amount of PPE supplies within their reach and also in their topo bag. And this is the very back. This is the very last resort closet for PPE, which we inventory, and we just got an app to keep up with the inventory. So we'll keep you posted on how that works. So a huge part of prepping is signage. You need signage everywhere. So this was another big task that we worked with K&E. You'll see on the next slide, Nicole Estrada made very personalized signage to go all throughout our hallways. Like I said, we have them every 6 feet where students would be. So that means that's tons of signage just for socially distancing, wear your mask, students can only go one direction in the hallway at all times, so directional signage. And so you'll see here we have a socially distancing one. It's very student friendly. It's warm. It's not sterile. It doesn't feel like you're in a hospital. You're in a school, and it should feel that way. Then you'll also see that every PPE closet or every classroom has a PPE closet that has to be marked, and it must lock. Students cannot access that. It's only for teachers. So you'll see that's what's represented there, and on it, it has the list of what's in the closet. So disinfectant wipes, backup sanitizer, gloves, and masks should be in that PPE closet. And in the bathrooms, we have reminders to wash your hands for the 2 minutes. We also have hover timers or 20 seconds, not 2 minutes, in the bathrooms, so they can know when to stop washing their hands. So that was another special touch. And also every classroom with a sink has those hover timers as well. We can go to the next slide so you can see examples of other signage. You'll see Nicole Estrada did an amazing job. She gathered our students and our staff members and had us wear masks and take pictures for all of our signage throughout the building. So that's what you're seeing here. So shout out to K&E collaboration here. And you also have, since we're doing the hybrid and we're phasing in grade levels, it's super helpful to have extra stanchions or something to block hallways that are not marked yet, to keep students out of there. So we have AN students here now, and these stanchions are on all hallways where no students are allowed. And I also posted signage on the stanchions too to make it extra clear.
I would just add that the signage felt really important to us to be very warm and friendly and very consistent. And we collaborated with K&E to make sure that we also had similar signage pieces. There was some talk at times about whether a sign would make sense to a kindergarten student versus an 8th grade student, and how to where to put certain signs with different information. We did want it to be really consistent so that students and teachers and anybody else that's accessing the building understands routinely where to look and like what to do, so it's not saying tons of conflicting information as we go. And so the only other tip I would add here is that we found you need to build your signs as you go, but you can't install your signs until you've reached the almost end point of getting the building ready. So once you've set PP up in the classroom and you have all of those pieces inside the classroom done, then you can start to install your sign, so that your signage does actually match what's actually happening, and you can be a little bit more flexible in your execution until you get toward the end. So to Ammons's point, if we're cascading grades in, we will also be cascading our signage to sort of flow as one of the last steps for the prep of that particular part of the building for grade entry.
That being said too, keeping a folder on your computer just full of signage is really important, because you'll be printing it consistently. So make sure that you have a good cadence for printing the signage, laminating the signage, cutting the signage out. It's time consuming, and if you just can keep up with it just like you do unpacking boxes, it will make the school setup a lot smoother. And if teammates are all consistent with the expectations of how you want it to look.
I just want to shout out Steph Ammons and then the K&E Ops team here, and just say how wonderful it's been to work with you specifically, and then the rest of the team at K&E and Irene at the middle school to prep the building. I'm very, very thankful to have that team and to work with them. I think it's really cool, and our building looks great.
Hey folks, I'm excited to talk a little bit about our staffing structure and some of the thought that went into this process as we were planning for our original return to building. So thanks to the incomparable Laura Schill, we came up with a triad model that places 3 teachers over a cohort of students each day. So those 3 teachers get to see 16 students on Tuesday, Wednesday as their A group, and they see another 16 students in their cohort as part of the B group on Thursday, Friday. So total, we're looking at 32 students to 3 teachers, which is about 35 humans that would interact with each other within a week. This model is brilliant for a lot of different reasons, and I'll hit on a few, but it provides a lot of teacher autonomy and freedom. It also frees up some of our other staff to be fourth and fifth wave folks who are then able to perform more duties around the school building throughout the day and are also available in the case that one of the members of the triad needs to be out for whatever reason. The process of rolling this out to staff looked a whole lot like creating time and space for them to have some intricate discussions and also giving them a lot of freedom to create their own schedule, which is something that I know that teachers appreciate. When we first rolled this out to staff, we thought through some discussion points that would be important components for any people that would be working together so closely throughout the course of a week. We gave them some talking points, such as what does it mean to be fair and equitable? What are some of your planning responsibilities within a week? We know that synchronous and asynchronous teachers have a very different planning load. And so that was a piece of the conversation. We had folks name their preferences for live instruction. We had folks think about paid time off and were there any important days that they knew they would be out of the school building for. After teachers had these conversations, they took a dive into their actual daily schedule and came up with a facilitation coverage schedule that worked for them. Teachers named who would be live with students at each time, who would be secondary if needed, and who would be on planning time based on our academic schedule. I think teachers appreciated this because it gave them some ownership in a world where they don't normally have a lot of ownership with the return to building plans. As we got back into the school building, our leadership team noticed that we could be really creative with the use of space that we had in the building. And it was really helpful to actually step foot in the building to help visualize how rooms could best be used. We knew that each triad of teachers had a total of 3 spaces. And so the way that we determined to work that out is one of the spaces would be adults only. You can see in the picture on the left of the slide that teachers have everything they need in this room. They have a teacher desk, they have a dot cam, they have Zoom bars set up in front of them, they have whiteboards behind them, everything they need to create a successful teacher station. We also know that teachers would be mostly restricted to this room when they weren't actively in front of students. So we wanted to provide them with everything they needed, from Keurigs to microwaves, to make sure that they could operate comfortably within the space. In the primary student space, we had 2 rooms, and we thought, hey, why not make one of them a whole group room and one of them a small group room? So the whole group room is set up with desks separated to create social distancing, and also so that a teacher could facilitate within that classroom either a live or an asynchronous lesson. Directly next door to that room, a very easy walk away, is our small group space. That's really duplicated. It looks exactly like the whole group room, but it provides a space for teachers to pull students individually to provide targeted instruction as needed. We also know that when lunch happens, students have to remove their mask, and therefore we needed a space to have about half the students. So the idea would be that half of the cohort, half of the travel group would move next door in order to eat lunch with mask off, and that cuts the number down from 16 students plus a teacher in a room to 8 students plus a teacher in a room.
So here at KNDMS, as a part of the culture team, we really pride ourselves on our systems and routines. And this pilot preparation was no different from any cultural systems and routines that we have in place. The best way for our students to understand these new safety precautions was for us to model them. And for us as adults to understand them, what better way than to make a safety video? We took time to meet as a group to go over all of these expectations around safety. We met with our ops team. They gave us a tour of the building while we were socially distanced, as well as what their idea of how this would look and play out. So as we continue to walk through the building and map out our routes and our sanitary stations, how students would enter and exit classrooms, how they needed to even enter and exit the bathroom, as well as making sure that they were able to read the safety signs of washing their hands at a certain time. As we went through this, we were able to walk the halls and understand how our students would feel throughout this process. And then we came up with a creative idea. We are the faces of our school. So what better way to model this for our students? We went through what entering and exiting the building looked like, what it would look like for students arriving in our car lines, what that would look like for parents, being able to ask those real questions that they may have. What does it look like when your student is not at the right temperature that would make him or her safe at school? What does that conversation look like? And unfortunately, we'd have to let that parent know that their student was unable to come into the building, but please, until their temperature is acceptable, please take your student home and allow them to continue learning remotely. So in that video, we covered a multitude of different things. It was a great opportunity to really understand how to keep our students safe as well as our staff.
When planning arrival, we worked in collaboration with Dayla at KNE to make sure that we had processes that were going to work for the entire campus, minus the ECE arrival, which is planned separately. So the arrival process that we have planned for right now can enter students into the building at our largest school capacity, meaning we are planning potentially to arrive students, 1,000 students, 6 feet apart. When we got to the AN pilot implementation, we only have about 4 to 6 students coming onto campus. And so this is much smaller version of that. We have not had an opportunity to practice the arrival process to scale. We haven't been able to do it with more than 1 or 2 families at a time. The AN students arrived pretty spaced apart. And so in terms of our own preparation, we haven't had back-to-back screenings. The photos here show the staff creating the video that Jeremy Mullet put together, where we're practicing that, but it also gives us a model of what we believe arrival to look like from the KNDMS side of things when we're back on campus later this winter. Under the Black Lives Matter sign there is a little station for our staff to make sure that they're pausing, sanitizing, cleaning any spaces that they may have used in the morning, and making sure that they take their temperature and fill out the health screener before they enter the building. So again, we believe that our arrival process, which is relatively the same system that the school is used to, just a little bit slower, definitely more physical space between folks, will work. We have not had an opportunity to practice it to scale, and so we're definitely going to be looking at that closely when we bring fifth grade back, along with KNE teammates at the same time. We'll be making adjustments as we go. We definitely had some challenges with transportation with the AN program, making sure that it was picking up students from school at the end of the day. We ended up not having transportation for those students, so we did contract with Hop Skip Drive to be able to take students home at the end of the day. Our dismissal for the whole school at large will be using a drive-line system that KNE uses and has used since we've been in the building and prior to that. So KNE's staff and students are very familiar with that particular system. We have up to 2 grades from KNE now, so their students have shifted up, and so those students are also familiar with the drive-line system, and we'll be using that to dismiss as a whole school. We have not had an opportunity to practice that, though we do believe that though it might be slower dismissal processes than we're used to, it will definitely keep students safe and get everybody out of the building in a timely and organized fashion.
All right. So as we launched into our Pioneer program, the AN teachers and myself realized after day 1 that we really needed to have student-focused lessons. We all had teacher-focused lessons on why masks are important, why social distancing is important, but we really wanted to take some time and really have COVID protocols specific lessons. And so in the first week back, I strongly suggest having this. We had lessons specifically on how the virus spread. So then the students can understand why masks were important. We also had lessons on Could we be 3 feet apart? 6 feet apart? And then when was it really acceptable to take off our masks? So a lot of the time was just during lunch, and then maybe when we're drinking water. We also wanted really specific lessons on why like hand washing was important. This is again, just like we utilized Rethink, National Geographic and Edutopia for these lessons, but we just spent a lot of time really focusing on this piece. And so as we moved forward in our Pioneer program, we did see an increase of students using masks and being able to socially distance that we did not see the first day. The other thing that we really wanted to focus in on is instruction, is that as we came back into the building, we realized that a lot of our students actually didn't know each other outside of maybe a Zoom photo or a Zoom just video. So we spent some time and some really specific lessons on just getting to know you games. We kind of looked at this as like the first week back to school when we really needed to spend time just building the culture within our room. After the first day, we really realized that some of the students knew each other and they needed just some relationship building time. And again, we used Rethink for those activities, but just taking time during advisory or just not trying to like go right back into our schedule and just taking to have students get to know each other so we can build a really positive culture. Ensuring that our visual culture stamped really big expectations of school. And so we just spent some time creating visual culture of expectations. And then again, like having like our character traits on the walls. So students knew what we were learning. During our Pioneer program, we realized that students did need a lot of recreational time. And so with that comes equipment. So we have Mr. Michael going through the expectations around equipment and recreational time.
All right, this is Mr. Michael. I've been given the task to speak in regards to the outside time that the students with the AN program had during the Pioneer program. The outside time was a significant time of the day as the students, it was necessary for recess for the students to be able to have brain breaks and things like that during instructional time as they were still logging in classes, and then we had the in-person classes as well. So recess outside time was very important. Students still followed the safety protocol. When we went to the gym, they were pretty much played on different basketball goals. They had their own equipment. With that, students kept masks on as they played in the gym. And so the protocol was able to be followed in the gym as well. I believe, as it relates to the students, you would still have different times. Students would just need to be reminded, as most middle school students would be. But for the most part, the protocol was followed correctly, and the students were still able to enjoy their recess time. As when we went outdoors, because the students were more spread apart, there was more opportunity to remove masks if they were far apart. Students utilized separate equipment during that time, but able to run free and get some fresh air. All the equipment, when we brought the equipment in, at the end of the day, the equipment was sterilized, was sanitized, and prepared for the next day, just following the protocol that had already been set during the Pioneer program. So, yeah, that's my part with the outside time and the recess time, which, in my estimation, flowed smoothly. All right, thank you.
As we progressed in the Pioneer program, we were seeing a lot of our students just not adhering, like after the specialized, like after instruction of like why to wear masks, why to socially distance, and why to wash their hands. We saw specific students just not adhering to these protocols. So we had to start diving into what interventional steps and what compliance COVID-driven we needed to go through. So one of the bigger things just within the special education world is that we really needed to relook at their behavior plans and see if we needed to have like a contingency behavior plan just revolved around COVID. we really needed the whole staff to be aware of how to take data. So as we're moving into like next steps of intervention or discipline, we really had backing of like what intervention steps we did, like the specific lessons, making sure that like the students that were around them, like any interventional steps we needed, we really captured within data. And then making sure that we adhered to like a manifestation determination meeting. We really needed this for our students because we did have students that did not wear their masks or they did not socially distance after multiple interventions. So it's very important for the staff to understand what is the next step. So staff feels safe, other students feel safe, and just our community feels safe. So just making sure that this is reviewed with your staff as you go in.
When it comes to discipline and returning to the building, our rollout was really focused around the DPS Student Compliance with Health Guidelines document. We did take the opportunity to reinforce our discipline practices, our intervention steps in classrooms, our restorative processes, which still very, very much live regardless of COVID or not. So as we were able to reinforce our already put in place expectations, student expectations, staff expectations, and so forth, then we were able to narrow down and really take a good look and start to internalize the COVID compliance and discipline document from DPS. With that said, primarily focuses are engaging with families, engaging with students, modeling, encouraging, praising compliance, and when non-compliance around COVID does occur, that we stay calm and we remain curious to try to determine what those barriers or misconceptions might be. With that said, then comes more education around these safety guidelines and why they're important. At no point do we want to have a mindset or attitude of this student doesn't belong here, even if they're not following COVID guidelines. Now, with these intervention steps, DPS has laid out a very nice guideline for us to follow. And with that said, it takes a lot of parent involvement. It takes a lot of education, and for us to be up to those tasks and not overreact if a student may remove their mask, or if maybe a staff member removes their mask and doesn't want to wear that. So with that said, the compliance and discipline document has been very supportive with all of our discipline practices that we already have in place. So a quick review. Step one, if a student is not meeting COVID guidelines, would be that we are grounding ourselves, we're staying calm, we're remaining rational, and we become curious and ask students, what is the barrier? What is getting in the way? What are those misconceptions potentially? Step two, we're going to look for creative solutions to remove those barriers. In step three, we continue to focus on developing deeper and stronger relationships with our students and our families. And if this is repetitive or severe enough, we will enter into the MTSS process. And if no improvement is made after that, we will be contacting our RIS, RAIS, our discipline leaders through DPS to problem solve and determine if in-person learning is the best way to continue or if remote learning is a better option.